Woodworking is a passion for most of us. Maybe it's making something from scratch that seems to scratch that creative itch in all of us. But what happens whenever the hobby becomes stressful? We overcomplicate things. So once again, my name's Billy. Here are 5 things that new woodworkers seem to overthink. Okay, I'm going to tell you my go-to foolproof finishing process. So I always start with 2 coats of shellac, and then I mix it to a 1:3 ratio with some denatured alcohol. And then after that dries, I sand it down. I put 3 coats of polyurethane, and then I sand it again all the way to 80 grit. And then after that, I take some lacquer and I spray 10 layers of lacquer mixed with a teaspoon ratio of lacquer thinner. And then between coats, I sand it with steel wool. And then after that's all done, I spray the whole thing down with SPF 50, and that way the sun's UV rays don't penetrate the wood. And okay, set the rag down and slowly step away. Do you know what happens when you complicate a process? You end up with a complicated process. Woodworkers are notorious for this, and I know because I've been that guy. Finishing can be a confusing mess. So when you find yourself adding a lot of steps to your finishing schedule, or worse yet, you're faced with paralysis by analysis and you don't even know what to do, ask yourself, what type of finish do I have confidence in applying? Choose a finish that works best for you and your project, but adding excessive steps doesn't equate to a better finish. Instead, find a process that simply works for the type of woodworking that you do. Maybe a simple wipe-on poly is your go-to finish. And if so, go with that. Or maybe you like a little spray lacquer. And if that's the case, right on. So next time you feel like you're adding too many steps to your finishing regimen, take a break from the Lumberjacks forum for a while. To protect your sanity and the safety of the world, please put away the feeler gauge. I'm gonna ask you to stop chasing 90. And I know I sound like a crazy person, but hear me out on this. Would you like to know how I determine if my workpiece is square? I take my piece and I hold a square up to it and I hold it up to the light. And if I don't see any light shining through, my piece is square. I don't have to build my table saw sled and do a 5-cut sawing method while I have a shop helper in hand with feeler gauges and shims anxiously waiting just in case I need it. It's simply not necessary. And it's not that I don't care about the accuracy of my cuts, because I really do. It's that I know when the return on investment is negligible. And I need my pieces to fit together. I need tight fitting joints. I need my workpiece to be square. But no one's coming into my shop and testing my table saw sled to see if it's 1/1000th of a degree off. It's simply no big deal. And I say this primarily to the new woodworkers out there. Don't worry about it too much. Use a good square on your projects and you'll do amazing. So what's a good square to use? Well, it's the best one that you can afford because ultimately you're going to use it every day. I use this woodpecker square on just about everything, and I absolutely love this square. But you know what? I also have a set of these smaller, cheaper engineering squares, and these are fantastic to use. So I'll leave a link in the description so you can check these out, but you don't have to spend money on these. Just get a good square that works for you and your woodworking, and you'll do fantastic. How durable is the finish on your project? Maybe a better question is to ask, how durable of a finish do you really need on your project? I've seen a lot of new woodworkers fret over this. They are worried about, they built this project, they spent a lot of time and effort into it, and they want to make sure that it lasts a lifetime, so they want to apply an ultra durable finish. The problem is that if you apply an ultra durable finish to a project that doesn't really need that, then you have the potential to take away from the natural beauty of that particular project that you spent so much time and effort making. I could easily slather marine grade varnish over everything I make, and while it would survive a sinking boat, do I really expect something like this decorative box to be on a sinking boat? Probably not. I love this box. It has a lot of sentimental value to me, and I spent a lot of time making it. I made inlaid drawer pulls, continuous grain drawer fronts, and dovetail joinery. And despite the amount of time and effort that I put into making it, I'm much more likely to put a durable finish on this simple coaster than I am on that box. That's because this coaster is going to get used and abused. It's going to have glasses sitting on that are sweating. It's going to get knocked off tables, liquid spilt on it. While that box, I'm going to enjoy visually while it's sitting on a shelf. So next time that you find yourself worried about the durability of the finish that you're going to apply to your project, maybe ask, how do you intend to use your project? And that could potentially answer the question of which finish to use. So with so many joinery methods available, which one do we choose? According to an unscientific poll that I took by combing through random comments left on YouTube videos, if you use pocket hole screws in your project, not only will it fail, the project itself will explode due to your pure woodworking ineptitude, and it's going to lead to shrapnel flying about the room. Okay, maybe that's a bit extreme, but you get my point. It's that woodworkers seem to really worry about the joinery used in a project. And hey, I get it. We all want to be proud of what we make and we want our project to last a lifetime. But unfortunately, this can lead to people thinking that one joinery method is far superior than another. But one of the things I love about woodworking is there's always another way to make something, and it makes something that's really good, of great quality, and that you can be proud of. Let's take a look at this cabinet that I built with its shaker style doors. The rails and stiles are held together with tongue groove joinery that I cut on the table saw, and the cabinet itself is put together with rabbited dados. This is a rock solid cabinet that will hold up to a lifetime of use. Let's take a look at this cabinet with its shaker style door. The rails and stiles are held together with mortise and loose tenons, and the cabinet itself is held together with dovetail joinery. This is a rock solid cabinet that will hold up to a lifetime of use. As you can see, there are multiple ways to make something. Don't worry that you have to use one particular joinery method over another. One of the best parts about us being makers is that we can build just about anything that our imagination allows us to, and in any style that we want. So some of the engineers of the world may not like this one, but why do we measure so much? It's kind of a rhetorical question, but to prove my point. So take this ruler. I use this ruler every single day, and what I like about it is it has 1/16 on one edge and 1/8 on the other edge. And I usually will just set this on my workpiece and take my pencil and mark directly on my ruler, take it over to my saw, set up my tool, and make my cut. But despite using this ruler every day, I don't ever really look at the back of it. And it looks like it goes up to 1/64 of an inch. I simply have no need to measure anything at 1/64 of an inch. My woodworking doesn't need to be that precise. So that leads me to my next point, which is woodworking plans. Now, there's a term in woodworking called relative dimensioning. And if you're not familiar with it, it means cutting your pieces relative to the dimension of the other pieces in your project. And that's why cut listed woodworking plans can quickly get you into trouble, especially a new woodworker, where maybe you're not designing on your own yet and you just want to go buy a woodworking plan and then build your project based off that. If you cut your pieces ahead of time based off the dimensions of the plan, then by the time you get to step 47, that piece may not fit. Because woodworking is not like putting together a Lego set, where all the pieces are pre-made and they're made to fit in exact spaces and exact dimensions. Woodworking is more of an art form. And we also take into account human error and tool error. So that board that you plane down to 3/4 of an inch thick may not actually be 3/4 of an inch thick. It might be 0.758 inches thick. And all those little fractions of an inch add up. And then when you get to that step 47, if you've already pre-cut your board, it's not gonna fit. So that's why you take one step at a time and try to rule out as much human error as possible. And that's why a lot of times, a lot of my projects, I don't even measure. And I know that could really drive some people crazy, but if I need to put a board between two other boards, I honestly don't care how long it is. I will usually set my board on the boards and then mark it and then just cut it my line and then fit it into place. And as long as it's a nice tight fit, the length of that board doesn't even matter. So I don't even need to measure. So doing that allows me to devote more brain energy to other more pressing things, like why my fantasy football team stinks. So there you have it, 5 things that new woodworkers tend to overthink. Compiled from a list of things that I overcomplicated whenever I first started off. Did I miss something? Leave a comment below on things you overanalyzed when you were starting off in the hobby. That way we can all laugh at ourselves together. Please like this video if you like this sort of content and subscribe to the channel. And until we meet again, get in your shop and build something awesome.